Alykhan Jetha, or AJ, fascinating man, born in Congo, was expelled, him and his family expelled from Congo, the heart of Africa. Went to Canada, to Toronto area, decided to go back to Congo, and then came back again. Got the entrepreneurial bug or flu, maybe. His parents had a shop there in Congo, so he kind of had exposure to kind of running your own business or their own business. But he was let go from a job and decided to do some consulting, and then had a need in the consulting practice, created a solution that he later turned around and offered to other companies. We see it time and time again where there's a need there that's not filled, but fascinating journey to get there. Like I mentioned, from Africa, from there, when he came back to Canada the second time, his sister raised him, and fascinating way to get where he is now. Didn't get any external funding at all. That's a very difficult way to go. But we also talk about sales and how it's a dirty word to small businesses, to many businesses, and we need to take it back, people. I don't know how we're going to do it. Maybe call it something else, but we need to take it back because it's necessary. But a great conversation with AJ. I really enjoyed the time. Thanks for listening and watching. Have a great day. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Well, I'm excited to talk to you, Alykhan Jetha. I appreciate your time. You were born in the Congo.
Right.
In the States, we know very little about that African nation. What should we know?
Well, it's in the center of Africa, and if you've read the book, which sometimes in school they would make us read this book, it's called the Heart of Darkness. That's exactly where I was born, in that place. The other thing that may be maybe familiar to people is the movie Hotel Rwanda. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
So the city where all the people ran to, which is Goma, is where I was born. And so there's always conflict there because lots of minerals and there's war happening right now. In fact, so it's unfortunate because the people, especially prior to wars, were really, really nice. And now they have constant conflict. They've had conflict for decades.
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection, powered by ForzaDash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading ForzaDash MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the ForzaDash platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow.
One way or another.
Yeah, when there's minerals involved and that's money, it's lives are traded for. It's horrible. What age did you leave?
So initially we got booted out when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And then we went back. But then when we went back, I was older. I was 7 or 8 or something like that. And we went back to Kinshasa, the capital city, which is on the opposite coast. and so that's where I kind of grew up, and then I came back to Canada, and then here I am. I've stayed here since.
What language is spoken there?
So over there, it's French
Ah.
as the quote unquote primary language, but then there is Lingala, Swahili, Kikongo. There's a whole bunch of different languages. Different tribes have different languages. But the ones that I'm most familiar with is Lingala, and second would be Swahili. But I know so little now; it's been so many years.
Is that right?
But then I did know a little bit of Kikongo and a few other ones, but I don't remember them at all right now. Lingala, I would if you threw me in there in a matter of days, I'd be back up to speed. I think.
So you go to Canada,
Yeah.
and what kind of culture shock? What kind of transition was there?
The transition was initially pretty rough. When I first came here when I was young, like 4 or 5 years old, when we got here, so we got expelled from the Congo,
Wow.
being South Asians and whatnot. So we got expelled from the Congo. We came here as refugees in Canada, and then 2 weeks in, my father passed away. So then it was me, my two sisters, and my mother. And so we had to kind of fend for ourselves to figure. I mean, we had to help, distant family and so forth helped us out a little bit. But yeah, it was a tough road. Then when we went back to the Congo, that was okay. But then I came back, and when I came back, that was for me, it was a bigger culture shock.
What is the process of a country expelling somebody? Do they show up and walk you to the airport? I mean, you get an email, you get a letter. What's that process like?
So, our peoples have faced two expulsions. First in 1972 from Uganda, where my father was born in Uganda, and that was Idi Amin. And that story. I think you've probably heard of that story.
Yes.
Forrest Whitaker makes a movie,
Won an
The
Oscar.
Last King of Scotland.
Yeah.
That movie, that's about the expulsion of Asians from Uganda. So my dad's family got expelled from Uganda in 1972, as well as my wife's family, actually, and my wife. She was 2 months old at the time. And then for us, and so what happened is they gave notice. You got to leave in 30 days or 60 days. I don't remember what the time period was. And then same thing in the Congo. So the Congo decided to follow what Idi Amin and Uganda were doing. And they expelled us 2 years later, 1974.
So you get expelled, you come to Canada. Why would you want to go back?
So the challenge was my mother was trying to make things work here, and it's very different. So she felt that it would be easier for her to go back, open up a shop, and make money, and then send the money to the kids. Also, it was like terribly cold. She has arthritis, and it was like, I got to get out of here. So her and I went back, and then my two sisters stayed here.
And you talk about your mother being a strong woman, but you also say that your sister actually raised you, your middle sister.
That's right. So what happened was when I went back in 1977 or 78, I can't remember exactly.
Back to Congo.
Back to the Congo. I was with my mom, for a number of years. Then my eldest sister got married, and my mom felt, well, you know what? Your middle sister shouldn't live alone, so you need to go there. So I went there. I think I was 12. I came back to Canada. And so when that happened, my sister had to become my guardian. I didn't even know this until recently when I found some paperwork that she became my guardian at the age of 18. She had to be, because to put me into school and all this kind of stuff. And then effectively from the age of 12 till, more than university, in fact, she raised me.
And then you go on and you actually fail out of university.
That's right. And so that's an interesting story, because I went to, so I knew exactly what I wanted to do in high school.
Which
right?
is?
I wanted to become an engineer, etc. But I didn't have the marks to get into the right school. So, or I didn't have the marks, period, to get into any kind of engineering school. So I ended up in poli sci at a local university, and it was just not me. So so then I ended up in community college. So I failed out of university the first year. I don't know who fails out of university, but you're looking at them. And I ended up at community college, and community college was hands on, right? So that was great for me. I learned with hands on, and that's actually where I met our mutual friend Ted. And so yeah, so community college was great. I actually graduated with honors, from failed university to with honors. And the other thing about community college, which was great, was I got co-op placements. So during, we were 4 months into school, and then 4 months you go work in industry, then 4 months back to school, etc. Right? And each one of those jobs was a placement, right? There was a placement, and I worked at IBM for a little while. I worked at some other companies, and what I learned out of that is what I didn't like, which was big corporate behemoths of companies. So one of the things I always like to share with young kids, they're trying to figure out what to do, is if you can get into a co-op program. I don't know what they call them in the US, but over here they call them co-op program. I would highly recommend those, because then you can go, you have these different placements that are 4 months at a time. Some places they're 8 months at a time. The different universities have different durations, and you get to learn while you're in university or college the things that you like and you don't like, and you get real world experience, because you're thrown in there.
And you have to learn that by actually experiencing it, Alykhan.
Yeah, that for me, I need to, I'm not a theory, read. I mean, I do read books, like you can see back here, but
Yes.
I read a lot of books, but really I learn from doing.
And where do you think you developed the entrepreneurial spirit?
So, you know, when we were in the Congo and so forth, so our families usually would have a shop, like some kind, like if you think of South Asians, we usually have some kind of convenience store or something, right? So we had a shop, but it was more, that wasn't really the thing, because I knew I didn't want to do that kind of business. It was more about just the desire to kind of have a bit more control over my future. That was really, I think, the root of it. And I would observe and watch. And one day I got, politely walked out of a job, and they gave me a little bit of cushion, and I started a consulting gig. And then the next thing was Marketcircle, which is the current business.
So you went from consulting. Do you think you would have gone to consulting if you didn't get walked out?
Maybe eventually I would have done something, but that certainly expedited it. When I was originally, when I was younger, it was, I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to. I still, I like to make things, right? This is why I make software, right? So I knew I would always want to make things. If I wasn't making software, I'd be like building homes or something. Like, I'd be doing something that creates. That's who I am fundamentally. And so that's what kind of drove me in that direction.
Well, I mean, no wonder you didn't like university. Political science, I mean, that's the complete opposite of what you're talking about.
That's the only program that accepted me.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's horrible.
That's why I failed.
Yeah, of course. You didn't like it. Yeah. Yeah. So you're consulting, and then tell me about the leap to actually create a corporation and start offering this to others. I mean, that's a pretty big leap. Why not just stay consulting with a couple of clients and leave it as is?
So what's interesting about that is a really good story, actually. A lot of times people ask me this question, like, what prompted you to start this company and why, etc. So what was happening was, at the time, I was watching, this show on eBay, and eBay is all about auctions. Everybody knows eBay. And I'm like, man, who does business like this? Like,
Mm.
usually when you do business, you negotiate, right? You have a price, and then you counter offer, and you come to a middle ground where both parties are happy. So I thought, this is dumb. What it should be is like, somebody should put up a product and ask for a price, and somebody can counter offer a price, and you have a certain number of negotiations, and you come to a happy medium. And so I'm thinking, while I'm watching this show, well, how hard could that be? That can be that hard. And the next day I started Marketcircle. So Marketcircle
Wow.
originally was not Daylite, was not what we currently do. It was this .com with the idea that you could put up a product for sale. You have an asking price, and then somebody can come in and make a counter offer. And so we built that website. Or when I say we, I managed to get some friends and family money. I got a couple of people to help me. One of them is still with us, actually.
Hmm.
And we built this thing, and it was actually working. We actually had transactions, and I went to raise money in the VC world. And when I got to the very top of the VCs in Silicon Valley, the day I got there is essentially when the internet bubble burst, the .com bubble burst. So I'm aging
Hmm.
myself here.
Hmm.
And that was the end of the road for that kind of a venture. So we had to pivot and go back to consulting for a while
Hmm.
before this Daylite product happened.
So in that marketplace platform, it was you were getting paid based on each transaction, or was there a
That was
cost
the
to?
idea. We
Yeah.
hadn't done the payment part of it.
Mm.
That was the biggest challenge, really. But we did have people exchanging, like, in terms of proof of concept, we had people exchanging, uh, basically negotiating and coming to a price. We had some people upload like thousands of little widgets and stuff like that. So we had that kind of, we were almost there, and I think
Hmm.
we were a little too early, to be honest.
Hmm. It's fascinating how you would. It was it niche at all because you're competing with eBay at this point. Why not? Why or now we have Facebook Marketplace, but it's very different now. But
Yeah.
why compete against eBay like that?
I was, sometimes you just don't think about it, and you just go.
Right.
So a lot of times people ask me, well, what made you actually just do it? Like, what inspired you to do this? And I'm like, I just make a decision. It's really, that was that simple. I was there, and this is an opportunity. I did a little bit of research. There wasn't anything like that per se, um, out there, and so it was all about auctions. And the differentiation here was that it's not auctions, it's negotiations. That was the
I see.
differentiator.
I see.
And so I went for it.
Do you code, Alykhan?
I still code, actually.
I see. So back then
And
you were probably doing it in like ASPX or what were you
no,
doing
so
that?
back then we did it in web objects.
On web objects, yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with web objects at all. It was
Mm.
um, in it was in, I don't, did we get to Java at that point? It was Objective C,
Yeah.
and then it became Java. I can't remember if I did some Java, but I did
Hmm.
the Objective C stuff.
And so you eventually tried to get funding. .com happened. So now it pivots to this new platform. So you go from this kind of marketplace to what you have.
Consulting, just straight consulting.
You went to consulting because you couldn't get any money with VC, and you have to, and that's consistent. Well, semi-consistent, but it definitely raises money, and then brings you to the newest platform. Why that pivot again? Why try pivoting it again?
So when we were doing consulting, um, what was happening was, so it was myself, Mike, and two other folks. But the crew that we had built the original Marketcircle with, and I needed to go out there and sell and get some contracts, so that because a contract is maybe a few months or a half a year, so you always need to fill the top of the funnel. And so that was my job. So I was a sales guy. and I was also coding, right? And the challenge was that I kept forgetting when to follow up, and when I did remember to follow up, I forgot where we would leave off, because typically these deals are, $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, and it's not an immediate kind of quick decision. There's a process to this. So the sales cycle was at least 3, 4, 5 months long. And so what would happen is I'd have to follow up, and when I would follow up, I'd forget where we were at, and of course it would look unprofessional, and I would not win those deals. Or if I forgot to follow up altogether, I wouldn't win those deals at all, because like, what kind of professionalism am I showing? So back then we were on the Mac platform, Rhapsody at the time it was called, and I had a choice to make. Now I needed a tool to kind of help me stay on track, help me follow up, etc. And so, either we had to switch to Windows or find some other solution on the Mac. There was no real solution on the Mac. So, naive me says, well, I'm just going to make a little tool. Well, how hard could that be? And Daylite was born. Daylite was born out of my own necessity. And then, so since we were doing consulting, what I did was, in terms of marketing, was I would showcase Daylite as a tool that we've built to show you that we have the prowess to build whatever custom system you needed. And so a number of people got wind of it, and then I was convinced to sell it as a product. Even though I didn't build it originally as a product, I was convinced to sell it as a product. And I thought, well, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So we converted it into a product as a download product that you ran locally on your computer.
What year is this? What year is this approximately?
So this was 2001.
Okay. That's the
Right?
solution. Then you made apps. Then, yeah.
Yeah. So this was prior to SaaS and prior to all these things,
Right.
and so we sold that product on the side for until 2007. And in 2007, we had enough revenue from Daylite to be able to now not do consulting anymore. So we were doing consulting for a while, and and then we were selling the product, and until 2007, the product itself was not enough to sustain the 4 or 5 people we were. And so eventually 2007, we crossed that barrier, and we didn't do consulting anymore. So late 2006 that we
So back
stopped
then,
consulting.
was it a client server? So you had to install a server as well?
So ultimately it became client server. So originally it was just local, right? Just single, desktop kind of thing. Then we did client server, and for the longest time we had a thing called Daylite server that you would install on one Mac. And it had the main database and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And locally on your local network, all the other Daylights would connect to it, and that was pure client server, and until we added offline. So we added offline, so you'd be able to get out of the office, still have everything working, fully functional, come back to the office, sync up. And so we still have that kind of premise. That premise still works, except now the server is the cloud, our cloud,
Right.
that we manage.
Yeah. Things were so difficult back then when we look at it today.
And so we'd have interesting stories, like people would come to us and say, well, my server got stolen. What do you mean your server got stolen? And it says, yeah, I had my server, that one Mac that we designated as the Daylite server. And I go, where was it? Well, it was right near the door of the office. So why is it near the door? So I don't know. I didn't think about it. Like, you don't put servers near the door. So we have all kinds of really interesting stories of how people lost their servers. But because we had offline copies, we could kind of, recover
That
their data.
So you had a business, you had an internal need that wasn't solved, very well with any particular softwares out there. So you decide to create your own solution,
Yeah.
and eventually that starts taking over uh, the business. So now you've pivoted it to a complete SaaS offering.
Yeah. So that's later. We pivoted to a complete SaaS offering in 2018.
Wow.
So between 2007 and 2018, so we started the whole cloud thing and so forth. And until 2018, we still sold Daylite Server. So you could have a self-serve product. We called it a self-serve product, or you could do the cloud thing. And in 2018, we said we can't do both. It's just crazy in terms of technology, in terms of all
Mm.
that kind of stuff. Product critical product decisions. It was a so then we said no more Daylite Server, and we switched over. So we didn't do a bulk switch from our original self-serve client server thing to cloud. We gradually got there. We started that transition in like 2015, and then by 2018 we were able
Hmm.
to pull the plug on that.
Now, as Alykhan, as this migration happens and the maturity happens, other solutions enter the marketplace.
Hmm.
But your solutions are 20 years old, going through these different platforms, different
Yeah.
technologies, let's call them, to where it is. So now the competition is much more fierce. There's so many apps. There's so many SaaS has
Absolutely,
just
yes.
widened up. Yeah. So what solution did your platform do for you at the time?
So when you say what did the platform do for us, you mean in terms of to help us differentiate in the
What
market?
need did you lack that made you make this product originally?
Oh, the original need to was really a system to help me grow the business, meaning manage the sales process. Help me with the sales process. And it turns out that when the sales in a small business, and when I say small business, I mean companies less than 100 people, let's say, right? You typically have to wear multiple hats, right? There's no, like, even in a consulting firm, and let's say you're 10 people or 20 people, everybody's selling, right?
Mm,
You don't have a dedicated sales team. Maybe when you're 50 people you have a dedicated sales team, but when you're 10 and under, or 15 and under, it's like, the main people that run the business are also the salespeople.
mm,
Perhaps you have assistants and whatnot, but a lot of everybody's selling. And so the critical part to selling, you have to execute, right? So you need to combine these things. You can't have them in separate systems.
mm.
And this is one of the things that separates us from the Salesforce and the HubSpots and so forth like that. We've built our product on the base of productivity. So all the other CRMs and type thing, they come from the top to bottom, right? They look at the sales function and they build up from that.
Hmm.
What we did instead was we looked at productivity, and then we added the sales function on top. So in fact, we have this thing called the productivity pyramid, where the bottom of the pyramid are things like meetings, notes, tasks, etc. Right? The second layer is people. So you have your contacts, your organization, your users, and the third layer is getting new business, so our opportunities, and then projects, which is delivering on those promises you made when you close a deal, right? So this is the kind of pyramid that Daylite is built on. And our premise has always been the things that help you grow that small business. And it's a challenge because there are many parts to
Mm.
this, and we have to kind of make things work. But that is our differentiator, still is our differentiator to this day.
Back then, I remember a program called ACT.
Yes, that was a competitor to us back then, when people look at just the sales function.
And
We used
so
to have an
now,
act importer and all that kind of stuff.
right, Right. Yeah, I had a pretty good. I think Sage ended up buying them, if I'm not familiar. But
Yeah, Sage bought them, and then I
yeah,
don't know what happened after Sage
yeah,
bought
they
them.
squashed it. Yeah. So now, of course, so we'll call it CRM, we'll call it pipeline management, we'll call it sales process. There's all these kind of sciences that have branched out, but it seems to me that you've kind of brought it all into one.
Yeah, so this is essentially what we've always tried to do. The reason we called it CRM was more of a marketing decision. So we should actually talk about this a little bit. So when we made the product originally, and I was, this like I'm talking 2009, 2010, 11, 12, that kind of time frame. I always thought that we didn't fall in the CRM thing, but we were basically a different kind of a product. And have you heard of the book Positioning by Jack Reese and Al Trout, or
No.
Al Reese and Jack Trout? I can't remember the names. So, anyways, this book Positioning was like, you need to claim your position in the market, and sometimes you need to make a new category, and you need to then push the category to educate people that you're different than other people.
Mm,
And so I was thinking about that, but then the pushback was, remember, we're bootstrapped, right? Like we don't have any kind of funding or anything like that. So it was the pushback was always that we don't have the marketing budget to introduce a new category. And so we kind of went with CRM. But I do regret that decision because it didn't
yeah.
help us differentiate ourselves. Even today, people talk to us as a CRM. They compare us to Salesforce and to HubSpot and to other CRMs. And yes, we do CRM, but that's because CRM is a necessity to grow a business. You can't grow a business without customers, like
Right.
end of story, no matter what kind of business you're in. And so, in order for us to fulfill the promise of helping you grow your business, we need to be strong in that area, right? So that's how that happened.
Why are businesses, many times small businesses, why don't they like sales?
Very good question. So when we were originally marketing, like back in 2007, 8, 9, 10, like we would start, we have to do marketing copy on the website. We would always struggle with this word sales.
Yeah.
Whenever we would talk to customers, "Well, I don't do sales."
Right. It's
Um,
dirty.
it's a dirty word.
Yeah.
And you go, wait a minute, but how can, like, I would always be befuddled by this. Like, how is it that you can say you don't do sales when if you don't have a customer, you don't have a business?
Hmm.
Like, end of story, right? And the and the wordings that we kind of changed to from sales was getting business or getting new business, right? Which is sales, really, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But then when I was looking it into it deeper, it was just everybody had this image in their mind of a dirty car salesman,
Hmm.
somebody like a swindler kind of thing, uh, which is
Selling
unfortunate.
something people don't want.
Yes, there you go. Selling something people don't want or need,
Right.
which is
Right.
a disservice if you ask me,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Of
You're
course.
you're not yeah, you might make the sale, but nobody's going to recommend you. It's going to come back to you. You're going to have to run somewhere else and make some other scam happen, right? So it's not the way. It's not in. There's no integrity in that method. So I do talk to customer when I'm talking to customers sometimes, and we get close or something, and then they ask me sometimes, like, I did a sales thing. But, well, you got to look at it as a service that you're providing, right? And you got to look at it as in a way that if I'm able to, if that person is better off with my product, then it behooves me to make sure that they get my product
Hmm.
or service, right? Versus the other way, if my product's not going to help them, then maybe you should walk away and find the people that it will help,
Hmm.
right? Because if it will help them, then they'll refer. Like, for example, with us, our biggest source of leads is really referrals, like
Hmm.
people, other customers telling to other, new customers. And so that's what you want. And this is really a mental block for a lot of people.
Hey, Joey Pinz here. Want to take your podcast experience to the next level? I'm excited to invite you to become a YouTube member. It's the absolute best way to support the channel and enhance your connection. Join our amazing community and unlock the incredible perks, custom loyalty badges, exclusive emojis, and priority comment replies. Your voice will always stand out. Be the first to watch new videos with early access, receive special membership shoutouts, and get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and updates. Dive into content available only to our members, special videos, deep dives, and insider perspectives. Engage directly with me. Suggest podcast topics you want to hear, and even get personalized video shoutouts. Hit the join button right now and become part of something special. Let's build this amazing community together. I can't wait to welcome you as a new member. Join the Joey Pinz family today.
Oftentimes, I work with a lot of small businesses in the tech industry, and you just can't use the word sales.
Yeah.
Business development, you have to reframe it. It's sales, but you just can't call it that because it's just gotten this dirty, stigma attached. And, but without it, you can't grow. I mean,
you can't,
especially in the tech industry, brilliant engineers, but generally speaking, I think you're the exception. Perhaps I am as well. They're not very, interpersonal. They're not really good at thinking that they're selling, but we're all selling. You and I are selling right now. I mean, but anyway, that's a philosophical.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we have to do, you and I and others have to do a better job of taking sales back. Hey, we're creating an environment in which it's easy for a customer to buy.
Correct.
We're not wedging them into a car that's bad and it's going to break down. That's a bad stereotype. We have nothing to do with that. But creating a platform or a service that we truly believe that will help. What's the resilient mindset?
The resilient mindset is, when you're an entrepreneur and running a business, you're going to face curveballs. And let me tell you, there's curveballs left, right, and center. Yeah. And so certain people I've seen, again, either through friends that I've known or customers even, right? That these curveballs get thrown and how they react to, it's not that the curveball is thrown, the curveballs are thrown to everybody. It's how you react to the curveball that makes the difference, right? So if you get this curveball thrown and you go into a negative tailspin, you won't navigate your way out of it because you're basically fulfilling it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? That you're in your mind, you're thinking the worst and you make the worst true because that's what you're focused on. So what I like to talk about with people on this is that you control yourself.
Yeah.
And that curveball is thrown at you, and maybe you mope about it for a day, and you go, you're just in the doldrums. But give it a day, and then the next day, you got to pick yourself back up, and you got to. So, what do you do about that? Like, how do you switch from that to the other? Right? Like what happened? Like why? First of all, you should do it. We know we should do it, but then how do you do it? And so there are little techniques that you can do. Like for me, journaling is very important, right? So by journaling and kind of talking it out, but in the journaling process, I don't mope about it, right? Like I might have a one-liner on it that this crap thing happened or whatever, right? But then I ask myself the following questions: is okay, well, now that this has happened, how can I change? How can I adjust? What can I do different? How would I navigate through this situation? And answers will come, right? So now that mindset that we were talking about is really about options. Ultimately, it's about options. So when you're in a situation and you have no options, you're negative because there is nothing to look forward to because you have no options. But if you take a little bit of time and develop some options, maybe 3-4 options, then you have 3-4 options to look at. Right? And if you have options, it means that you have something to look forward to. So sometimes when there are big business decisions that we have to make, I'll actually gameplay in my mind or in a journal. Like, if that doesn't happen, then what would my option be? So even before it occurs, if it does, hopefully it doesn't occur, but if it does occur, I already have an option in my mind, right? So I even prevent that. So the options is my little secret formula in terms of keeping that positive, resilient mindset. So you curveball gets thrown. Let's say sometime an unexpected curveball gets thrown your way. Then my first go-to is, okay, what are my options? And if I don't have any, then I take a little bit of time to just put pen to paper and just let it come out. And sometimes you have to just ask yourself that question, go to sleep. The next day you might have some ideas, and that gives that resilient. Then you can be resilient because you have these positive options. They may not be, some of them may not work or may not be realistic, but at least you have that. And then while you're figuring that out, some other ones will come up.
You're very kind of pensive, okay, this is happening, let's talk about, it seems to me that you're not rash and you kind of jump to things, you think things out. Sometimes though, when we get some bad news,
Yeah.
it's the worst time to make decisions, right?
Mhm.
So your advice is to, hey, sit back, write things out, breathe, take
Yes.
10 breaths, count to 10 or whatever it is. And it's
So that's a really good point you bring up.
yeah.
So one of the things I learned in reading one of the books, Lincoln on Leadership, this book, and how he dealt with setbacks with the Civil War and so forth. I can't remember who the general was and stuff like that. And one of the things that he would do is he would write out a letter expressing his anger and so forth. But he would never send the letter. Right. So, and the reason for that was he didn't want to do something rash. So he wanted to be of clear mind, but he had to get it out of his system. Right. So I learned that from that book. Actually, that was a pretty, like, so sometimes when somebody does something stupid,
Interesting.
I'm angry and I just kind of write it out, or in the shower, I have a discussion with the shower head that is animated, and then it's out of my system. I'm calmer, and I can kind of deal with it a bit more, in a way that doesn't make it worse. Hopefully, you're right. You don't want to do when something, a curveball gets thrown at you, especially when it's somebody doing something stupid. It's easy to kind of like blow up, right? Like you sometimes need to just stay calm.
There's like 5 stages of acceptance or 3. I'm not sure what it is, but
Yeah.
not a good time to make decisions.
Yeah.
It happened to me recently. There was some bad news that hit, and you start panicking. Okay, what am I going to do? And then, okay, a couple hours pass. All right, that's over now. Let's really think about the direction we're going. What can other business owners learn from you about not getting external funding?
So remember we were talking about options, right? So um, in the process of building your business, you kind of have to gameplay a little bit in terms of, well, I don't have X number of dollars. Like, I need to do this, and again, you don't need to go into the weeds of spending 5 months kind of doing a budget. You can just kind of rough it out, spend a half an hour, and say, okay, it's going to cost me a couple $100,000 to do X. I don't have a couple $100,000 to spare. So then you ask yourself, well, how would I go about doing it anyways? Like, what are some ideas and options? And out of that will come out you know, when you go through this process, it may take days. Like there are days in my journal that I ask myself the same question and I have no good answer, and then the third or fourth day something strikes. um, so you know, it's an interesting idea. So that, you know, in code, have you heard the word refactoring?
Yes.
So there are two ways to change a system. You either rewrite the whole system or you refactor things in little bits. It's the same principle
Hmm.
in the sense that you kind of figure out ways to slowly move it, because you don't have the big budget, right? So if you kind of change something and, you know, send certain customers a certain way, you can get a little bit more there, and then, you know, it's now working, let me continue on that one. So it does take longer, right? You're sacrificing time for money, right?
Hmm.
If you don't have the money, then you probably have to put in the time. And so that's the kind of ways
Hmm.
we can kind of navigate that scenario.
Alykhan, has there been anything in the last month or so that you changed your mind on?
Oh, I changed my mind left, right, and center. um I think that you know, this as an entrepreneur, or any kind of leader, whether you're at the C level or, you know, VP level or whatever, you have to be able to change your mind.
Hmm.
Like, and how do you go about that? You know, if in from so there's a bit of ego problem here with some people, right? That,
Hmm.
oh, I made this decision and I'm right, and if somebody proves me wrong, that makes me look weak,
Hmm.
right? You got to get rid of,
Hmm.
because when somebody is bringing you that information and you have this attitude, you're not going to, sometimes you won't get that information,
Hmm.
or secondly, you get the information, you'll block it out, you're the one that's losing. That person brought you this information, so
Hmm.
it's not like they didn't give you the you know, the yellow flag. They didn't they raised it. You're the one that didn't listen. So who's the loser here, right? You're the loser, you're the idiot. um and so you have to be open to that. So that means you got to fix that ego piece, right? And once you fix that ego piece and you realize that certain people actually do have better information, maybe because they're
Hmm.
closer to the ground, right? They understand the situation better than you in some cases because they're in there, then you can't be in there. Then you have to take that information, digest it. If you're wrong, you accept that you're wrong. Okay, great. Sorry, I made a mistake. Let's make a change, right? So the part with changing your mind, I think, it's ego is a big problem there.
Yeah,
Once you get rid of that, then, and you're given objective information, changing your mind is not a problem,
that's right.
because you could see, oh, this assumption was wrong,
Right.
therefore this won't happen. So let me adjust so that I can still get my outcome that I want.
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes ego gets in the way and people dig in. I like to think that I could change my mind on any given subject given new evidence.
Yeah.
Right, given factors that I didn't consider. So, Alakhan, I started my tech business up in the states, in the Northeast, in the '90s, and I was working way too hard and putting my health in the back seat. And next thing I know, in front of the doctor, I'm at 340 pounds.
Wow.
And yeah, just working 14, 16-hour days. You're no stranger to that. And
Yeah.
not eating pizza at night and soda there, not exercising. So she says to me, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. My daughter was just born.
Hmm.
So scared the life out of me, right? Because
Yeah.
I could do whatever I want to me, Alec, but I can't. I've got a daughter, I've got a wife, I've got a family now. I've got to take care of myself to take care of them. Spent the next 6, 7 months, lost about 130 pounds.
In 6 7 months.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's
So
impressive.
kept it off. You can't look at it as a finishing line. It's
Yeah.
it's life changes. So when I tell this story, I always, what's your secret? What you do? And there's no secret. Discipline. That's
Hmm.
how I kept it off.
Yeah.
Focus, motivation, willpower, etc. All under discipline. How does discipline play a role in your life, Alykhan Jetha?
So good question. Good question. The way I look at discipline is, um, if I know where I'm going, it's
Mm,
easier to be disciplined
mm,
about something, right? So if I have a clear objective that I got to be here, and I want to be here, right? That's the second part. I know where I'm going and I want to be there, then it's easier to make the little sacrifices every day to kind of, get over there. The other thing is also, it's, is discipline, like, are discipline and habit synonymous,
mm,
right? If they are synonymous, then what I like to do is, I know I have to change something, and I like to kind of, okay, I'm going to change one thing, get used to that, then I'm going to change another thing, get used to that, then change it, but
mm,
then by the
mm,
time a couple months in, I've changed a lot, right? But I try not to change too many things in one shot. And so then it's habit, right? So you combine the way I look at it is, you combine the fact I know where I'm going, or I want to go there. Sorry, this is the target, and I want to be there. Like, I want to be there. If I don't want to be there, then that's maybe the wrong target, right?
mm,
And then secondly, I look at it. Okay, what do I have to change on a daily basis? A habit that can help me get there.
mm.
So little like a lot of things are small things. They're not huge things. But if you put everything together, it can be overwhelming,
Yes.
and then you just get discouraged, and then you won't have the quote unquote discipline to do it.
Yeah, one bite at a time or one
Yeah,
step at a time as well.
yeah,
Habit is similar to routine.
yeah.
Are you making the commonality there?
Well, I think, um, they're a little bit different in my mind.
Okay.
Like routine is, the way I look at routine. So correct me if I'm wrong.
No
Is,
wrong answer.
from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. I kind of have these sequences of things that I do.
Mm,
Right. I get a coffee. I journal a little bit, and I try not to look at my emails and stuff like that until
mm,
after I've journaled. I read a little bit, etc. And so if you're doing that every day, that to me is routine. And then habit is like, once a habit is established, it's like muscle memory. Like, you
mm,
don't have to think about it when that occurs. So as an example, um, let's say around 3 4 p.m., you typically have the munchies, and then you go and grab some not so healthy snacks,
mm.
right? um, but and you don't even think about it, you just go and you grab it. Like, I have that problem. I'm coding, or I'm doing something, and I'm deep
Sure.
in thought, right? And I'm like, my stomach's grumbling a little bit, and I'll walk out and I'll go to the kitchen, and I'll grab the first not healthy food,
Mm,
and you know chomp down. So that's like muscle. I'm not thinking about it. It's just, so the habit that would change there is, first of all, trying to get rid of that thing so that it doesn't tempt me. But the other one is, maybe instead of a carb, I would have a small stick of cheese or something like that,
mm,
rather than,
mm.
so then my habit becomes, I think of, my automatic habit is to grab, like, one of those little cheese little
Sure.
things.
Sticks. Yeah.
Yeah, so instead of, the cookie or what have you.
Mm.
And so that to me is a habit.
It's a habit.
It's muscle memory.
Mm. Yeah, some of my best eating is when I'm not hungry, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. You can make better decisions.
Yeah. What motivates you, Alykhan? What motivates you?
um that's a good question. So, of course, family, raising a family, and
Yeah.
and providing for the family, that is a big component. The other one is, to uh again, it goes to family, be a good father, be a good role model of my kids. um and so a lot of the things I do kind of, go back to that. So that kind of motivates me, that I provide for my family. Another thing is just, another thing that motivates me is doing something good that helps other people. which is why I make the software I make, because it's like you said earlier, it's a competitive market.
Yeah.
Right. And I enjoy it. So because I enjoy it, it motivates me. And to me, it's like, okay, like we'll get customer testimonials that make my day. And that'll be like, you help me become more organized, or you help me get some peace of mind. And I grew my business better, like stuff like that. That motivates me.
Hmm. Impact, Alykhan.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
So given the motivation of family and impact, how do you measure success?
How do I measure success? That was a good question. I would say that I would feel unsuccessful. Oh, I'll go the other way for a second.
Yes.
I would feel unsuccessful if I had lots of nuclear family problems. But thankfully, I don't.
Good.
Yes.
Yes.
And I have a good family. So, and so I have a 21-year-old son, I have a 17-year-old daughter, right? And we enjoy hanging out with each other. We do family trips together, and those that's a indicator of success for me. It's the other thing too is I don't put like these crazy ridiculous look, I need to have a $10 million mansion, and I don't that those things don't matter to me. What matters to me is the people, right? And my relationship to those people, even my nieces and nephews, and so forth. So I measure success that way.
That's
So it's
wonderful.
not, I don't measure, which, sometimes can be detrimental. I don't measure success financially.
Right. But you did mention before that, when you came to discipline, you got to have goals, you got to have targets, you got to arrive there. So perhaps in the business, the success is a bit different than you personally.
So in the business, even in the business, sometimes like the financial objective is secondary, which this is what I was saying might be detrimental, because I have more of a like I have a vision for the product. I have a vision, and I'm not there yet, right? And so I'm working my way there, and of course the ground is changing in the meantime, right? Like the whole landscape is changing, so I have to adjust to that landscape because my vision isn't fully realized. It is partially realized, not fully realized. So I look at that. That's my, where I'd like to go.
Very cool. I love talking. It's so fascinating, the many different paths to just business owning and entrepreneurialism. It's fascinating, from Africa to bootstrapping to, my father was not in tech like yours. He was a welder, and just couldn't believe that I didn't want to be a welder, and
Right.
but I did understand because he had his own business and the way he acted in front of clients. I'm sure when you were at your mother's shop, you noticed that, hey, when business hours open, you got to act a certain, there's certain lessons that you learned, even though that's not the exact business, how to transact and some business essentials. And he taught me all of that inadvertently, and
by example.
By example, yeah, and it's wonderful, and you have to be there, and it's Mr. and Mrs. Client, and we can fool around or whatever, but when they're around, we are focused on them, and I just saw the shift, and you're creating a solution for that client. You've got to make sure it's there. It's entrepreneurialism is God, double-edged sword, isn't it?
Well, you raise a really important point that I kind of lament with all this, remote working and everything remote. The kids can't see, like, I'm interacting with you right now.
Right.
They're not seeing this because, like, or other business situations, right? So when we used to have an office and everything, so we're fully remote now, but when we used to have an office, my kids were really young, but my nieces and nephew would come over and they would see, we're having meetings and so forth. And so that teaches you indirectly how business, business, just human relations actually. And so I do feel, in fact, one of the things that we used to do a lot was we would hire from universities, students from universities, again, co-ops. We would get co-ops first. We like them. We offer them a full-time job when they're done their thing.
Nice.
But we can't do that anymore because now we're fully remote. Training people is difficult.
It is.
They don't see what you're doing. We can't see what they're really doing, right? So going back to learning from observation, really, that's kind of gone away in a fully remote. So I think fully remote kind of work is good for when you're in your, like, you're starting a family, so you need the flexibility of not commuting so much and so forth until a certain age your kids are, and then you probably want to be more in a group environment, same thing beforehand, so you can learn the trade. And part of the trade is dealing with customers and dealing with people, etc.
Want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypinz.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it.
Yeah, it's not enough to know your business and what you're doing in your solution, but how it fits into customers with and it's
How to interact with them.
and how to talk to them and interact. Yeah, very important. I just got back from a trip, and we do most of our stuff remotely, like you're doing now. Your team's remote, my team's remote, and boy, just nothing replaced that face to face when you could
Correct.
just feel them a little bit and sense, and Alykhan, thank you so much for your time. I enjoy talking to people like yourself. You're inspirational. You get me all juiced up, man. So if anybody listening, how can they get in touch with you?
So there's two places. You can get us on our website, which is daylite.app, daylite.app, and that's the application that we serve out. And then you can get me on LinkedIn. It's my full name, Alykhan Jetha. Those are the two places I kind of am, actually mostly on LinkedIn. Like, I don't do other social media as much, but I am on LinkedIn, so you can get a hold of me there.
Correct. And it's Daylite, Lite, Daylite.app.
Dot app, yeah.
.app, yeah. And your name, your first name, Alykhan, Alykhan Jetha, Jetha.
And I go by AJ. Like, everybody
that's
calls
right.
me.
That's right. Everybody calls you AJ. Yeah. So I'll make sure to put those all in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time, my friend. Next time over there in the greater Toronto area, we'll get a cup of tea.
Absolutely. Deal. And thank you for having me on. It's been great. This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
You be well.
You too.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypinz.com. There you'll find lots of resources, and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.